Is this thing what? Is this thing on? Just checking. Hello and welcome to the Not Amused Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what I hopefully can indeed have you hearing me correctly. Good morning to all of you guys and girls. Thank you for listening. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that yesterday's show that I didn't even have to do yesterday's show, but I was like, I really want to get a show together. I want to put a show out because I can't do the normal show because I'm at the press conference. I really want to put a show out for you all. And of course, I forgot to turn the microphone on. Yes, and I didn't have the benefit of a chat box to tell me. But I did have the benefit of another conscious being in the room, well, the virtual room with me, who could hear me. I text Laura yesterday saying, did you not for 1 second realise that I didn't have like a microphone connected throughout the entire show? But no, she was like, I thought you sounded fine. I was like, well, you mustn't think my normal microphone's any good then. Oh, dear. It's not her fault. It's my fault. It's my fault entirely. I should have checked. When I'm doing a pre-record, I always should check that the microphone is selected, as I have done, yes. So the entire show wasn't mute. It was just like you could hear the echoey noise of the room from the laptop microphone rather than this microphone, even though I was speaking into this microphone for half an hour. So, yeah, it wasn't great. So I apologize for that. And for those of you that maybe tuned in for your first ever show, any listeners, fans of Laura's work, maybe tuned in for the first time, that isn't a representation of the audio quality that we have here. And I'm sure many of you pointed out in the chat box as well. Knew that already. It is fun. I do leave pinned comments when these types of things happen. I mean, I still have people leaving comments saying your mic's not on. I was like, oh no, I left it in the pinned comment on the video. I said, apologise for the mic not working. It's like your mic's not working. Yeah, I know. Pinned comment. Check the pinned comment. It's the desperation that some people's psyche is. I must rush to the comments section to let Tom know something he already knows about the quality of the audio. I'm checking my mic because I keep clicking on the button to make sure the right one is selected. But I know it's right. Right. Thank you for all of you tuning in. Appreciate your time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've had a good week. Welcome to the weekend. Welcome to the return of Premier League football. Tom, good morning to you, to Rich, to Martin. We've got Blackshine. We've got K West and Runs with Cows. We've got John. We've got Tucker Boy. We've got Kirill. Good morning to Sid and Granddaddy Good at Paul. We've got Paul Jr. in the chat as well. We've got Grantley Poos. We've got Olawale. We've got Spearmint and Glenn, James. And good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. But yes, as I said, Premier League action is back. Not in N5, but in West London today and across the country. Nottingham Forest in the early kickoff hosting Chelsea. Brighton then taking on Newcastle in the first 3 o'clock kickoff. One of four 3 o'clock kickoffs today. Crystal Palace taking on Bournemouth. Manchester City taking on Everton. Sunderland taking on Wolves, and the 5:30 kickoff, of which I will, of course, be in attendance for a little bit later on this afternoon in West London. Fulham host Arsenal. Then tomorrow we've got Spurs against Villa at 2 and Liverpool against Man United at 4:30 before a Monday kickoff, finishing off the weekend's action. West Ham against Brentford. Arsenal have the chance to go 4 points clear of Liverpool today if they can get a victory in a ground that has taken points off Arsenal in the past. But there is rather significant injury woes for our opponents today. They are without several key players who would certainly be in the 11 were it not, of course, for these problems. That includes Sasa Lukic, Rodrigo Muniz, Anthony Robinson, who's been particularly excellent against Arsenal in recent years. They are definitely out. While Samuel Chukwueze, Raul Jimenez, and Kenny Tete, we are still waiting full confirmation about whether or not they are going to be available or not for the game. So 2 of their 3 centre-forward options are all out. Well, one of the 2 is definitely out. One of the other 2 is potentially out. And then that means Josh King might indeed play the youngster as a centre-forward. So Fulham have got their own injury issues, just like we have. that needs to be considered, of course, in any discussions around this topic as well. But let's jump into today's slides, shall we? And we begin. I would have talked about yesterday had I have been live, but wasn't, so I couldn't. And so we do kick off with an important Champions League victory for the Arsenal women, winning in Lisbon against Benfica. A 2-0 win again. And I say important because it is just important that this winning run now continues and keeps going, because we cannot afford to see more points and more frustrating scenarios dropped, because we need to have as best a run as possible in any of the cup competitions, even though the WSL already looks rather unlikely. And I'm going then. Russo got the second on the in the day, so congratulations to them and Renee Slegers on the victory. And further congratulations are in order for the Golden Boy and Golden Girl awards. Michelle Agyemang has been nominated for the Golden Girl Award, of course, after her brilliant performances for England at the European Championships. She is spending another season on loan away from Arsenal with Brighton. While for the Arsenal men's side of things, Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly have both been nominated for the Golden Boy Award. Although if I was a betting man, I'd probably say that Desiree Doué is going to get his hands on this particular accolade. Zubimendi won goal of the month. I don't think you need any. I don't think you need any hints as to what goal it was that got him the award. But that fantastic strike from the edge of the box against Forest to give Arsenal the lead in that game. Ball drop into the edge of the box and bang, smashing his shot in past the keeper and earning himself a goal of the month award. And sticking with Zubimendi, Mikel Arteta did indeed confirm that he indeed will be available. He says, yeah, all the players come from different countries, different amounts of games and minutes played, and we believe that it is the right thing to do. He played 2 games again. His load has been extremely high, and he needs an extra day. But he was asked if he's available, and Arteta said he will be available. Yes, and then all the training pictures that did emerge after the press conference yesterday, Zubimendi was indeed involved in those training images. So he will be available, I imagine, in the squad for the game. But let's jump into yesterday's press conference. Of course, that's why I couldn't do the live show yesterday, because it was an early morning press conference, which is obviously always a bit of a benefit because it gives you kind of the rest of the day, but it does mean that there's no early morning show. And the traffic's usually pretty good early on a Friday morning as well, which is always a plus. And managed to get to the training ground in record time yesterday and back, which was also really good. So maybe it's a good omen for the weekend. Let's keep fingers crossed that it is. But he was asked, of course, about injuries and wanted an update. Gary Cottrell asking the questions for Sky, an update on Martin Ødegaard. He said it will be weeks, no definite date for his return, but he's evolving well. Very unlucky what's happening with him and his injuries this season. But yeah, I think he'll be back in a few weeks' time. He was asked if that means after the international break, as Sami Mokbel, of course, had somewhat reported, and he said it could be, but we'll have to see how he progresses, how the knee is healing, how he manages after the next steps in his rehab. So too early to give an answer. And I'm just going to fast forward right to the end of the press conference as well, because James Olley from ESPN also asked a question about Ødegaard, and he asked how is he dealing with this mentally, because he's had a hell of a lot to deal with already this season, and of course wants to be front and center. So how is he? And Arteta said, I think he's in a really good place. So it was disappointing how it happened. The good thing is that he does everything that he possibly can to prevent injuries. Injuries that he's had, they are very, very difficult to prevent. And so that's something that you take a weight, therefore, off yourself. And that's it. And then he cannot afford to be in a different mindset. He's the captain. He needs to drive the standards. He needs to be the example. He needs to bring that to the. He needs to bring that next to that, as in off the field. So that's it. When you don't have an option, you are a dad. You have to look after your kids. You have to be there. You are good. You're tired. You don't. You have to be there. So that's his responsibility in the team. And obviously being without his captain, but with the kind of the squad building that you've done over the summer, you must be in a better place. And obviously he said yes for sure. But that doesn't mean that Martin is, he said, a capital player, which is interesting kind of terminology. So he's very, very important for us. And we haven't had it in almost since the start of the season, like other players, unfortunately. But we are coping because we have the strength in the squad, because we have played with other qualities, but they are still performing really well. And that's what we have to do. But make sure that we have him back, because we will be a better team. So that's the Erdegaard stuff, of course, we've kind of touched on the Zubimendi thing as well. Ben White, in terms of being similar to Zubi, he said, yes, very similar. So hopefully Ben White's injury not too serious. If there is one, we'll see if he's in the squad today. We are monitoring all the players and giving specific menus to each of them to make sure that they are in the best condition. I think menu reserved for kind of the rehabilitation, not necessarily. It could be food, but I read that more as kind of a different programs, so each one is in the best possible condition. And Hincapié, of course, Hincapié back with the squad. And Arteta said, yeah, he'll be in training today again with us. And if everything is all right, he will be available. And we really want him to be. He's a player. It's going to really help us. He's going to bring something different to the team. We need to get him going and get the speed that's necessary to compete at this level and gradually get him to where we want him to be. Now, James Bench of CBS Sports also asked a couple of questions about Hincapié and said, could you expand on what you're looking forward to seeing from him? To which Arteta said, well, you're going to see his aggression, his determination. He's a player that goes full gas to every single action, especially in defending and with the ball, whether he plays a left centre-back or a full-back, a player that is very clean on the ball. Again, someone that really wants to penetrate, whether it's the ball he's positioning, and it will bring a different character and emotion to the team. And interestingly, James also asked the question about Hincapié's former manager, Xabi Alonso, who is a very good friend of Mikel Arteta's. And he said, yes, for sure, in terms of speaking to him. I had to. I mean, someone like him that I know so well, trust him, had him for a few years. It's very, very valuable information to have. It was super complimentary of him for many different reasons. And it was good to confirm what I saw and some of the things that you learned from that conversation that probably you weren't very aware of. So, yeah, very interesting to hear him talk about the fact that he did speak to Xabi Alonso prior to the club making a move for Piero Hincapié. Some more injury news, though, before we move on as well, and that's on Noni Madueke. He said he's getting closer as well. He's going to start very soon to do some running and stuff again, so let's see how that works. And on Kai Havertz, he also said, I mean, it's very difficult. There's still a lot to do in his rehab. He's really pushing it. We know Kai, and that's why we love him so much, but we have to wait and see. I think we are doing a really good thing with him again, and he wants to break every timeline, I'm sure, but as well, we have to protect him and make sure that when he comes back for the long term. So maybe not as close as what was alluded to online, but still is very much making his way back into the field as well. Now, Arteta has become the 10th longest serving Premier League manager now. You know, that if you can name the other 9 without Googling or having looked it up already, fair play to you. But you got others like Arsene Wenger, of course, Pep Guardiola, Alan Kirbishley is on that list. But yes, very privileged and grateful, Arteta says, to be present on the day because we know that our job is the only thing that requires it. So it is kind of mad, isn't it? That he's now the 10th longest serving Premier League manager ever. That is mad. Absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I'm very curious to see how long, obviously, he ends up staying at Arsenal, how far down that list. He said, you know, another 16 years to go to overtake Arsene Wenger. He said, yeah, that's a long, long way away, of course. And so, yes, that there was the other kind of real theme of the press conference focused in around Viktor Gyökeres, and not just the press conference broadcast section, but the embargo section had some really good stuff as well that is out. And of course, you can read some of those quotes in the Mirror this morning. If you want to go and pick up your paper, you'll find some pieces from me in the Mirror this morning if you're able to get a hold of it. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, the Gyökeres stuff. And Alex Howe from BBC asked him about kind of this idea that he's missed the goal. You know, he's not been scoring, didn't score for Sweden. And Arteta said, yeah, but he brings so much to the team. And watching the games back, I'm very pleased with what he's given to the team. I told him before the press meeting, I said, the 9 that I want is a 9 that when he doesn't score for 6 or 8 games, he can handle that. If not, you have to go somewhere else because the pressure is gone. The expectation is going to be there. So if you put on the 9 shirt for Arsenal, you have to be able to say, okay, 6 games, don't score. I'm a different player. I start to act in a different way. I want much more of the same of what he's doing. Once we have those opportunities, I'm sure it's going to happen. And that I think is, I think it's a really good answer. I think that from Arteta around Victor, because yeah, you don't just want a centre forward that's just about goals, and you also need a striker that's got the mentality that if they're not scoring for an extended run, that they don't let that affect their game. And as I said, there was a good return in the embargo section about Gyökeres. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. And he was asked by Charlie White of The Sun, he's having a bit of a nightmare. Was it helpful if he had have scored for Sweden? He said as well, it's a good representation of what football is. Football is not a case of putting two players there and suddenly everything is fine. Of course, the other player being Isak. If they scored 45 and 55 goals, we are not going to score 100 goals. It doesn't work like that. And it's a really good example of how tough this injury industry and this sport is. Even with the best possible ingredients, it's not enough to win. But I saw it yesterday in training. He is more eager and determined to do what he has to do. And he was asked again if he thinks he's trying too hard. He said, I don't think so. I think he's in the right zone. He has been very unlucky. The more I watch of his action, the more I realize he has been very, very unlucky not to score another 4 or 5 goals easily by now. They will come. And at some point, he will have the luck that that he's not had before. And then John West from I think also from The Sun and other parts of the industry as well, said, how did Victor Gyökeres react to getting a 6-game kind of period without a goal? And he said that, the Disneyland scenario is a really easy one. You're going to be happy and enjoy it. And in terms of how Victor is, he looks like that and he doesn't move. He was on the screen like this and he said, it's fine. That's him. There's no emotion. He's just very single-targeted mindset player. And that's what I love about him. I don't know if where he says he was on the screen like this and he kind of looked at the camera and was as in he had no emotion on his face. He wasn't bothered by the fact he hadn't scored. Now, I was trying to kind of absorb what that meant. And I don't know if that means that Arteta had a kind of a FaceTime catch up with Victor while he was away in Sweden about the games and discussing kind of his form. But it was really interesting, unless it was maybe an interview that he did maybe with press that Arteta watched and I haven't seen, but it was an interesting comment. And obviously that element, if you like, of Arteta's assessment of Gyökeres, I thought was important too. In terms of what I asked Mikel, well, I can play you the first question of what I asked Mikel here. Hi, Mikel. It was pointed out to me the other day that you have as many senior left-footed outfield players as right-footed outfield players. If they were to play each other, who do you think would win?
What kind of pitch? What size of pitch?
11. You got 10 of each, so 11 aside.
11 aside, I don't know. It's good. It's a really good balance. It's a very rare thing to have, and we have thought about it a lot. But it is a coincidence, certain things, because, for example, our 3 academy graduates, the 3 of them are left-footed. That's quite rare already. I have 3 sons, 2 of them are left-footed, quite rare as well. But yeah, they are beautiful to watch. That's certain, and they give you something different.
So, yeah, I don't think he was ever going to answer the question of who would win, but the question wasn't obviously designed to get that answer. It was more about the insight into not only the depth, of course, that's available in the squad, but also about the insight of having left-footed players. And, of course, having that rarity. We were doing it. I was talking to Ed Aarons and Phil Duncan before and said what I was going to ask. And they thought it was quite funny, of course, to ask the question. Sometimes those types of questions, on the surface, you think, oh, that's a little bit immature. That's a little bit, so-so. But actually, those kind of light-hearted stuff can sometimes get more from Mikel at times, and he will give you an interesting answer. And Sam Dean of The Telegraph in the embargo section actually followed up on that question about kind of the left-footed players thing, and he asked basically what does having more left-footed players bring you? And Arteta said it's balance. When you have a strong foot, you are more orientated and more inclined to play certain passes in certain directions. When you want to attack certain spaces, when you are an inverted foot or a natural-footed player, the ball is going to arrive in the box in different ways. There are certain connections, how deep you can play a ball when you're playing in certain spaces related to how dominant you are in your foot. It's a lot of things to consider. And it is, and I've talked to you about this before. I've spoken to you before about this idea of having right-footed players on the right side of a back four and left-footed players on the left side of a back four, because when you play kind of a forward pass as a right-footed player down to the right flank, as a left-footed player down to the left flank, what you're doing, and I'll just enlarge the screen for a second, like the right-footed pass, I'm sorry if the camera's oriented the other side so it looks like the left, but it's my right hand. If you pass kind of the ball out swinging to somebody who's kind of So out-swinging pass and somebody who's running onto the ball, they're meeting at a point where they're kind of in line and moving. So if you're playing an in-swinging ball to somebody who's running, they've then got a tougher time to control that pass because the ball is arriving at them at a different type of angle, a different type of speed, a different type of trajectory. Whereas if you're passing the ball as an out-swinging ball to the player, then obviously it's going to be slightly different in how that ball arrives at them, and it's easier to control, and also it's going to be ahead of them. So that's just one example, but we know from like insides wingers and more naturally footed wingers about you get crosses of certain types, corners are taken with different footed players. So it's an interesting topic, the whole left-footed, right-footed, and how that kind of just works basically, and how that situation kind of works in football. Also, sometimes when you ask Mikel a question that's maybe a little more lighthearted, it means you can go in and ask more of a serious question to follow things up afterwards as well. And I wanted to ask Mikel, and I did allude to this earlier in the week. I said there was kind of a serious question that I did want to put to Mikel off the back of the interesting scenario that, as we know, that Villarreal and Barcelona are playing in Miami. They're playing competitive home league game in Miami. And the Rams at the moment, of course, Stan Kroenke's Rams are playing the Jaguars in Wembley in an NFL game. So they're playing a competitive NFL match away from the United States. So it's something that's growing more prevalent in the world of sport, and particularly now football as well with this La Liga switch. And you might remember that I highlighted that Josh Kroenke in the fan forum after the Super League U-turn had guaranteed fans that they wouldn't play a home match away from North London. That's what he said. And it's interesting that he said North London. Now we're talking about kind of the stadium expansions and stuff, isn't it? So that's quite an interesting one, because guess what stadium is also in North London? Wembley. So that's kind of got a different tone to it now, that answer, which is also very interesting. But Arteta said when I asked him, do you see that as Arsenal's future, never playing a competitive home game away from it? I didn't want to ask him whether, like, you know, if it was up to you, would you never do it, sort of thing. I just kind of want to leave it more open to interpretation. Do you see that as Arsenal's future, never playing a competitive home game away from the Emirates? And he said, he kind of paused for a second, and he was like, I don't decide that. For me to say never, I don't want to use that word, because obviously if it happens, then it's obviously going to come back on him. Let's see if there are other people who have to decide. If you tell me what you prefer with the schedule that we have, let's play as many games as possible in London, please. Which obviously is what we all want to see. More games in London, more games, of course, so there's less travel for our players, less fatigue, less travel time, all of the impacts, of course, that can come from that as well. So again, interesting stuff, and very intriguing to hear from the manager. And there was actually a question on the stadium expansion in the embargo section as well. Gary Jacob from the Times asked Arteta, the owner's ambitions, one of the ambitions maybe is to enlarge and expand the stadium. What would your role in that process be? And he said, if somebody asked me my opinion, I would say, for how long are we going to be out? That would be my first one, but they've done it in other countries, other sports, in incredible ways. It's about, when I talk about vision, it's everything. Infrastructure is one of them. I know how this stadium looks in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, and I'm sure there is a big master plan. They've already thought about those things much better than me. And Gary continued, says, but one of the things that you've obviously done here is improved the atmosphere. Obviously, one of the fan groups said that they're be careful about changing the stadium atmosphere, and said that's why I was asking whether you'd have an involvement in what you would like to see in the way that a new stadium might look and how you could improve the atmosphere. To which he said, I don't know. We are not there yet. I don't know how that will look. What I can tell you is that when we are doing major decisions, we share them, obviously. They're going to lead all the decisions at the end, but to all the people involved in those discussions or in the daily work or the flow of that, they are super conscious of that because they have all the experience. So I think Arteta maybe spoke a little bit more openly than what was expected on the whole stadium move, and I think that's a positive thing that we heard lots of honesty from him about the stadium move, because it is a big change in Arsenal's potential near future in the next few years, but still there is yet to be any kind of confirmation on that at the moment. Well, let's go to a quick part two, which will be a preview ahead of today's game against Fulham. Okay, this is part 2 of our match day show, which of course is always a little preview ahead of the game against our next opponent, which happens to be at Craven Cottage. Arsenal were held to a draw there last season. A late Bukayo Saka goal was ruled out for offside, courtesy of that Gabriel Martinelli cross. He was indeed offside, the Brazilian, in the build-up to that move, and Arsenal were frustrated again in West London. But the hope, of course, even is with these amount of players that Arsenal have out injured at the moment, be that Odegaard, Havertz, Jesus, Madueke, etc., and so on. Maybe Ben White, hopefully not Zubimendi, who did train yesterday, as we talked about in part 1. Well, the fingers crossed situation is that we can play a very strong team still. So this is the team that I'm going to go for this game. Victor Gyökeres, of course, continues to feature as our 5-star hopeful. I call it hopeful now rather than prediction these days. And we'll get some score lines from you in the chat box. So get your scoreline predictions in there now, and we'll go through as many of them as we can shortly. So David Raya in goal for me, Jurriën Timber at the right back position, Calafiori at left back. I say left back, Calafiori wherever. Gabriel and Saliba in the 2 centre half positions. Zubimendi does indeed start this game. Declan Rice left, Eza on the right of that attacking midfield duo. Although I say that, it's actually kind of more of a 10 situation, I think, now for Eza, with Rice and Subi playing kind of the 4-2-3-1 style pivot formation. Bukayo Saka on the right, Martinelli for me on the left, just away from home. It wouldn't surprise me if he went with Trossard, but I would go with Martinelli for this one. And Gyökeres, of course, playing at the centre forward position. I'm going to go for a 3-0 Arsenal win in this game. I'm relatively confident. Mohammed says Arsenal to win 4-0. Clint's agreeing with me, saying 3-0 to the Arsenal. Carlton says 3-1. So does Mike. Abdul Hakim also says 3-0. So does Black Shine. David J. Lloyd's going for a 1-0 victory in the game. Claire's going for a hard-fought 2-0 to us. Goals from Timber and Rice directly from a corner. Matt G says 2-0. I think Arsenal might look a little sluggish after the international break. James says 3-0 to the Arsenal. Mason says 2-0. Zoom says 3-0. And Anne says Saka will cook. I'll continue to throw up some more of these score lines as we go to part 3. Your questions and more right after this. Right, this is indeed part 3 of today's show, where we're going to be jumping into the chat box for the next 15 minutes or so and tackling some of your questions. So if indeed that you've got any questions you would like to ask, now is the time to ask them. Right, let's go to Matt. Says, did Fulham have any players on international duty? I imagine they would have done. Let me see if we can find. Sometimes, of course, on club websites, they do have a roundup of their players that were on international duty. So let's just see if we can go onto the Fulham website, and if it gives, I mean, the likes of Joachim Andersen, you have to think would certainly have played for Denmark. Just scrolling down a little bit more. International roundup. Yes, here we go. So international roundup for Fulham. So Joachim Andersen for Denmark, Calvin Bassey, Samuel Chukwueze, and Alex Iwobi all played for Nigeria. Although Chukwueze, of course, is a little bit of a doubt for this game, apparently, according to Marco Silva. Sander Berg played for Norway. Timothy Castagna played for Belgium in their game. Luc de Fragroles played for Canada. Sorry if I've pronounced that horrendously. It's probably much more French than that. Harry Wilson played for Wales in their games against Belgium and England. And at youth level, Josh King made his under-21s debut in their 1-0 win over Andorra, a game in which he scored a disallowed goal in that fixture as well. So, yes, they've had quite a fair few players play in their most recent game. If you were to ask me who I think will probably start for them, I mean, in their last fixture, it's probably going to be a very similar side to the one that played in the last game. Their last fixture was a 3-1 defeat to Bournemouth. Was their last defeat in that result. So Josh King played, as I say, up top because both Rodrigo Muniz and Jimenez still not 100%. We don't know about them. Iwobi and Harry Wilson were the two wingers in that game. We know that Sasa Lukic is out, so he's not expected to be in the team. So Sander Berg will probably be partnered by, could be a number of players, to be fair. That could partner him in the middle. It could be Tom Cairney. It could be Emil Smith Rowe, maybe potentially. Ryan Sessegnon and Castagna are kind of the wing backs. They play with the back three of Diop, Anderson, and Calvin Bassett, with Bernd Leno, of course, in goal. So they've had quite a fair few players out, but they'll still be able to field a very decent side. Richard, I think Trossard might start today, but I'd like to see Martinelli play in this one, just because I think away from home, maybe on the counter, we're going to get a little bit more from him. John says, Tom, do you know what colour shirt we'll be wearing today? I'm superstitious and have to wear the shirt that we're playing. Yes, I do know what shirt we'll wear, because Arsenal often give a good hint of what game it's going to be. I mean, they've changed their badge to the blue kind of lightning bolt, bluey purpley kit. So the zigzaggy kit, the away kit. It's what it is. I don't know why it took so long to describe what it is. It's the away kit. We're wearing the bluey away kit is what we're wearing. Because we have worn red at Fulham before, I think. And also Fulham play, do they not? Oh, they've got a full white. I think they've got a full white kit this season, actually, from memory. If memory serves me correctly, I think they've got a full white kit. So that should mean that we don't have to change our shorts. Sometimes we do. If you remember in Bilbao, we had to wear silver shorts with the blue away kit. But I have a feeling that they have a full white kit, but I might be wrong. I'm struggling to remember now. I'm pretty sure they have a full white kit this season. Arthur says, Tom, I understand Anthony Taylor is officiating our match. Does that worry you? Yes, as it would for any referee worrying me. Any referee taking charge of an Arsenal game is a worry, because they're just not very good. I've forgotten about referees. It's been such a nice international break not thinking about referees for a little while, hasn't it? Like, we've just not had to worry about referees, but Premier League's back, so yay, we have to worry about referees again. Anne says, I know we haven't seen much of Hincapié, but do you think he'll play more left back or left-sided centre-half? Genuinely, I don't know, because the depth we have at left-back is much bigger than the depth that we have at left centre-half. So maybe left centre-half. He plays both positions very comfortably. So I'm just very curious to see what he can bring. He came on, I think, at left-back, did he not, at Athletic Club? He is faster than Calafiori, Victor. Definitely faster than Calafiori. So I hope that he comes off the bench. I hope that we see a little bit of him today. It'd be great to see and get some words on his performance. David says, if you were doing any other thing in journalism, i.e. politics, entertainment, and showbiz, what would it be? In journalism, I mean, politics, I have a really keen interest in politics, but discussing politics, especially in a public space these days, almost comes with more edge to it than anything else. So I guess if it was journalism, it probably would be politics. But again, it's a crazy world at the moment, the whole politics space, isn't it? It is mad. It is absolutely mad. Samuel says, bit late dropping in my prediction as I just woke up, but I'm going with Fulham 5, Arsenal 7. I dreamt about that last night. Love to see it. B-Boy Gaming says, what do you think the score will be? I just joined. I think I said 3-0, didn't I? I'm going to go for a 3-0 win. Bailey says, England are 110 for 5, 16.2 overs. 220 against the Black Cats for anyone interested. Thanks, Bailey, for the cricket updates. James says, referees get no sympathy from me. If you've not got a high-profile job, then jog on. I mean, I just think that referees, why we even know their names is mad these days. You know, there's too much profile. I mean, Anthony Taylor is probably the most guilty of all of the Premier League referees doing regular interviews. And I know that he's talked about some very sensitive, important stuff about safety and mental health and, of course, his family. And he has been subjected to some horrible things, which is unacceptable. But there is obviously another element of kind of the referee discussion, which is, should referees do as many interviews as they do? And he did those. He did interviews, of course, earlier on in his career, before scenarios like that emerged. So I think there's a level of consistency to be able to discuss that topic. Paul says, why are our most popular shirts not available online on the store? Arsenal's third shirt is unavailable, like the black and gold kit. Surely the club can do better. I think that the third kit's been our most... It's been our highest selling shirt ever. I think there's been more shirts sold of that kit than any other. Adidas men's. There is no third shirt. I mean, the black and gold kit sold out a long time ago, and stocks have been depleted. There is there's no more stocks of the black kit from 22, 23, I think it was, wasn't it? So yeah, if you want to get hold of that kit, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to. I had to wait so long for my Arsenal third kit. If you want an Arsenal third kit at the moment, you're probably going to have to go to one of the actual stores to get it. And it's not a case of Arsenal doing better. It's the club. It's the kit manufacturer, Paul. It's nothing to do with Arsenal. It's Adidas. They're the ones who have the stocks, of course. So are in charge of the manufacturing of the shirts. Black Shine says, I still want that black and gold top. I mean, you can probably find them online, but they will be rather expensive. AA says, I believe Rice and Eze will switch from right to left during this game. Will we see that happen? I guess we'll wait and see. AA says, I believe Rice and Eze. You've left it twice. Don't spam my chat, please. Chris says, how many games is Marley Salmon expected to get in the first team this season after being named a top scholar and in the under-21s? I'd be surprised if he plays a senior game this year in the competitive sense, but he will gradually get there. He's just not on the same level as Down, and of course we've got a lot of depth in defence at the moment, so maybe he gets on the bench for an FA Cup game if we draw against a lower league team again like Port Vale, but I'd kind of doubt it. Abdullah Kim says it's the Khan versus Kroenke derby weekend. It is, with the Jaguars against the Rams this weekend, as pointed out by Gary Cottrell in the press conference. You can't help sometimes but laugh with Gary. He's a character. Vacan says, did you see the news where they are trialing a format where a team can appeal for a VAR review in the Under-20 World Cup? I think I heard about it, but it's great that that's being implemented, and I do think that is one of the potential better ways forward. DJ Polar says, just got home from the club. It's 3:38 a.m. in the Bahamas. I had a great night tonight, calling a 3-1 result for the Gunners. Well, I'm glad you had a great night, mate. That's fantastic. So Nicholas says, you're not wrong, Tom. I had to pay $220 for the black and gold shirt. My goodness gracious. I mean, worth every penny, but my goodness gracious me. David says, what is a half space? I've been afraid to ask. There's no problem in asking at all. So imagine a football pitch, and you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, okay? So you've got kind of the pitch, and imagine you're looking at it lengthways. So you've got the goal at the bottom and the goal at the top. Imagine you've got that pitch now split up into 5 even strips, okay? So you've got kind of 2 outer strips called the wings. You've got a central strip through the center of the pitch, and then you've got 2 more strips between the wing and the center. So just filling in those gaps. And those 2 middle lines are what the half spaces are. So usually they are best defined by, and I think sometimes people will put them as the gap between the edge of the 18-yard box and the 6-yard box. I'm not sure that is an accurate representation of what a half space is, because I think a half space extends outside the box slightly. It does depend on the size of the box and the size of the pitch. Sorry, the box is obviously always the same size, but the pitch can be slightly wider and thinner, and the gaps between the edge of the box and the edge of the touchline can be different depending on the size of the pitch, because pitches are not all the same size. Pitches have to be within a certain range of sizes, and sometimes that will change kind of how big the pitch is. But that's kind of how you define the half space. It is the strips on the pitch between the center and the wings. It is the gap between the center and the wings. It's the best explanation I can kind of give you of what the half space is. If you Google half spaces, you'll get an image on Google Images, I'm sure. AA says, imagine how strong Arsenal's team is. Very strong to leave Mikel Merino on the bench. Absolutely. Joel says, been watching you on Spotify. Keep up the good work, mate. Thank you, Joel. Apologies about the audio yesterday. It was horrendous. Laura's was all right. Mine was absolutely terrible. Eddie says, really looking forward to what Gyökeres can do in the games involving our bogey teams. Hope he scores today. Absolutely believe you, and believe in him, rather, to be able to do it. Michael says, hi, Tom. Love the show. First time listening live. I listen every morning from New York City, and I have flown over several times to see our beloved Arsenal play in person at the Cottage. I believe there's a lot of American Arsenal fans flying over for the Crystal Palace game, and I'm looking forward to meeting plenty of them. I think there's a couple of events going on, so that should be a lot of fun. think Arsenal America are over for that Palace game. So that should be, a lot of fun. Emmanuel says, wow, I never knew that. Thanks for the quests and thanks for the, or rather the question, I think, the quest. And thanks for the explanation, Tom. I've always heard people speaking about half spaces, but I never knew what it meant. Well, there you go. Every day's a school day. Still teaching. Arthur says, Samuel, the good thing is at least we won. Keep the dream positive. Oh, 100%. It shocked me so much. I was watching, no lie, I would hate to see that game. The 7-5, I think you were talking about earlier. DJ says, wearing my 0405 number 14 shirt today is usually a good omen. Well, hopefully you're wearing it in every game in that sense. David says, so it's kind of in between the fullback and the centre back. I mean, it's not really based on where the players are because players' positions overlap. It's more about it's basically I can't really describe it other than it's the gap between the centre of the pitch and the wings. It is just that strip of the pitch which separates the centre from the wings. And that is the half space. It's halfway between those two areas on each side of the field. Logan says, Brighton have the biggest pitch in the Premier League. What a stat. Goodness me. I have the best community on this. You are the most educated YouTube community, without a doubt. By the way, did you see the brand new on Turkish's YouTube channel, the new podcast, Loose Cannons with Jordan and James? Look for Jordan. Should be speaking to Jordan very soon on TGT. 137,000 views on that podcast. How incredible is that? 137,000 views. That is mad. That is absolutely crazy. Fair play. And we're big fans of James and Jordan and Turkish. And I think the fact that, you can go off and forge your own path and do your own thing. And it's a good thing. It's a great thing. And I think I did see the trailer yesterday that they're doing for the new Forever Arsenal podcast. Lee Judges, with some of his finest acting I think we've ever seen from Lee. It's got to be some of his finest acting skills. I mean, his singing voice can improve, but some of his finest. So I'm looking forward to seeing what goes on there. But, whether you like Arsenal Fan TV or not, you have to sometimes. Life's too short to hate on everybody, and sometimes you just got to laugh at a good joke. And I thought it was quite a good joke, so for sure. Joel says, do you think when Havertz comes back, Gyökeres will benefit from it as he has that competition? I hope so. I really, really, really hope so. Fingers crossed that is the case. DJ says you'd be a great addition to Loose Cannons. Oh, that's very kind of you, DJ. But I mean, they're doing very fine by themselves. And the thing about podcasting, and as obviously I used to do the lounge with Mo and Lev and Shaheen, and we used to do it obviously regularly every Monday. I can't commit to like a regular podcast. It's like, unless it's associated with work, which is something you might see in the near future. I can't commit because obviously I'm traveling, I'm doing presses. We don't know when press conference is going to be. The idea of a regular time slot to record a podcast for me is just impossible these days. I mean, again, I'm sorry the amount of people that, I get DMs saying, can we do a collab at some point? And obviously some smaller YouTube channels. I'd love to help people out more than I do. But it's time. I have to book these things in 2 months in advance these days because the fixture schedule just makes life so difficult. At the moment, I've got 2 games, 2 press conferences a week minimum. And then obviously there's other engagements going on, plus work on top of that, plus this channel on top of that. Travel sometimes involves 2 days of work as well. You might travel up on the day of the game, come back. If it's a European game, it's 3 days out of my schedule because you have to travel there for the press conference the day before, the game day, and then travel home the day after. So, schedules are crazy, absolutely crazy. So I'm really sorry that I can't commit to more pods. I'd love to, but it's really difficult for me to do. Money says, why do people underestimate the power of being hard to break down? It's just as potent a weapon as being a lethal attack. Add our attack to that, and we're super dangerous. What are fans complaining about? Well, someone needs something to complain about, mate. Someone needs something to complain about these days. It's just the way the world works, I'm afraid. Thomas, is not just about playing between the lines. You've also got to hold the ball up and give kind of give the ball at the right time. Absolutely. Aoife says, if you play a back five, then the half spaces then not between the left centre backs and the fullbacks anymore. Well, they're not really fullbacks in a back five. They're more wing backs, aren't they? But I absolutely take your point. I think you're spot on. Kirill's been a member on the channel now for 11 months. Thank you, Kirill, for your kind support. And yes, we've survived. And DJ also pointed out, yeah, protect your mental health. All of that made me anxious. Yeah, it is a mad schedule. And that's why during international breaks, I try and take the weekends off these days. It's so important to take those breaks, because if you don't take those breaks, then yeah, it's tough. By the way, I've just realized, I know the camera's pretty good, but I've realized, like, when I'm gesticulating now, because I've got kind of a new setup with a new desk and stuff, which I quite like the desk being in shot and having kind of the papers on the side as well. But I've realized that the perspective of the camera, and I know this is very normal, but does it not make my hands look massive? Like when I'm like gesticulating, but the closer I get to the screen, I feel like my hands are going huge. I look like David Raya for a second with how big they are. James says they're going to have different guests as the fourth person, and your name was suggested. Oh, was it? Oh, that's very kind of them, if that is indeed the case. So, well, if it's a one-off, then that might fit. So, yeah, but that'd be an absolute pleasure to join those three. They're top guys. Jerome says you're also slightly off-center. I don't mind the off-center thing, Jerome. That's not bad. The reason why I am off-center is because because I don't want to cover it up, and secondly, eventually, here in this big gap that you can see here, we're going to get those scarves that you can see over there. We're going to kind of get them hung up into this space as well. So there is a reason why I'm slightly off center, but I kind of like off center whenever I'm doing kind of like pictures for articles and stuff. And obviously, like we have a deal with Getty, so that's why like you can see kind of Getty images on Football London or the Mirrors, because there's a deal in place so you can use Getty images. And when you're creating your article, it's a little bit of a glimpse behind the curtain for you guys. It's not a case of like I just send in a Word document with my article. I have to build the article in our website. So the headline, obviously there'll be suggestions of headlines or whatever. And then you have to do your social headline, which will be what shows up on Twitter or Facebook when the article's published. Your lead text, which is kind of the subheading underneath the headline. Then your article underneath that. You have to input the pictures, your tags, your SEO, all of that. And so when you're doing your picture, because obviously a picture will show up very differently on different platforms. So if you upload it onto a phone, it will look different to what it looks like on a desktop or on a website or on social media, or, you know, it will crop it in a different way. So you have to kind of like crop the pictures in the ways that they're going to show up on certain websites. And so I often do, like, if I'm looking at Arteta or Gyökeres or somebody else, I often kind of put the person off center, because then there's like a bit of an empty space next to them, or it's kind of a bit of atmosphere or background. I kind of like the off center look more than being kind of dead in the middle. Plus, because I've got a wonky nose as well, it doesn't help. It kind of like you don't notice me being dead symmetrical in the middle because I'm never symmetrical. So that obviously also does kind of help. Runzo Cal says, still haven't bought a towel rail yet. No, still haven't bought the towel rail yet. That is the plan. It's just I had to get the desk. The desk was the next job. And we've also got kind of a cabinet there and a new light as well in here. We're kind of filling out the room. Yeah, that's next job. Actually, there is another job going on in the kitchen before that job. We've got kind of like a breakfast bar in the kitchen. I want to kind of get like a raised, you know, probably know what I mean. Like it's like imagine this is the side of the breakfast bar. I want to kind of get like 2 rails and then like a glass panel, and then get kind of some like stools to go underneath so you can kind of sit and have a drink at the breakfast bar. You know, it's just so middle class these days. Cal in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in, Cal. Cal Cass says, been a while since I caught a live show. Just to say thank you for all the work that you do and the human that you are. Wow. I mean, there's nice things go. That's a pretty nice thing to say. So thank you, Cal. What a nice thing to say. And I hope you're doing well. And thank you for tuning in again. I hope things are good. Also, Jerome says there's actually a legit psychology behind having your head near the top as it's looking down the camera. He's psychologically in control of the room. There's also a fact that I'm actually just quite tall, and like I can't really, the chair won't go lower and the camera won't go higher. This desk does move, but it's a rising and falling desk. But like, I've worked out that I've got too many plugs in the way that I can't rise it above a certain point at the moment. So yeah, there you go. Let's go to Paul says we need to get back to what made us great, move the ball quickly and be devastating. I mean, when you say get back to what made us great, look at the Premier League table. We're pretty great at the moment. Freddie, I'm not reading out that comment. Thomas says, sorry, Tom, I was quoting John Barnes's rap from World in Motion. How did I not pick up on that? Yeah. Yes, you were. How did I not get that? It's not just about playing between the lines, is you've also got to hold and give and do it at the right time. You can be slow or fast, but I'm not going to sing the rest. Let's go to Kumbi, who says, good morning, Tom. Did you see my last text about me requesting for jerseys? I told I'm from Nigeria and a big fan. You can't be sending jerseys to Ghana and not Nigeria. You have to make it equal. Well, tough. You win a competition and you can get a shirt, mate, but we're not doing another competitions. Tough. Sorry. It was done very fairly. In fact, some might argue it was the fairest prize draw of any prize draw ever. So yeah, tough. Chris says maybe do a poll and see if the listeners prefer an 8 a.m. start. It's okay for me, but when the show is longer than an hour, I need to start work. Well, tough. We've done 8 p.m. shows for the last 4 years. I'm not going to change it now. Claire says it was an absolute calamity. I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Oh, what are you talking about? It wasn't a calamity. It was as the most random draw of all time. Victor says I can confirm. He's quite tall. Indeed. Showing my age, one for the old listeners. I wouldn't say that. I think most people know the John Barnes song. It just, when you have like one line of lyrics out of context, I think I can be forgiven for not getting it immediately. Abdul Hakim says it was the weirdest draw. It was not a weird draw. It was a fine draw. It was a perfect draw, totally intentionally executed with no problems whatsoever. Slinker says, what's a breakfast bar? I'm assuming we have different names for it here in the States. Okay. So in a kitchen, sometimes breakfast bars are like little islands. You might have like the sink on the island, or like an area for, but mine is like, it's kind of like attached to the side. So like the kitchen looks out into kind of the dining area, and there's kind of like a bit of, there's like an outcrop, if you like, of kind of a kitchen surface where there's like a dishwasher underneath and a cupboard. That's a breakfast bar. Do you call it other things? I don't know. That's all I've ever heard it called. I have no idea. DJ says a brekkie nook. That sounds almost rude. Is that a real thing? A breakfast nook. That's kind of a corner. I'm looking at pictures of this, and that's kind of like a corner. It's not a brekkie nook. I mean, I love that. That's a pretty cool name for it, but that's not what it is. Yeah, a brekkie nook is that's such a fun word thing to say. A brekkie nook is like a little corner of your kitchen with like stools and chairs on. That's Paul says I've got a breakfast room. I mean, I thought I was sounding a bit middle class earlier on, Paul. That's a breakfast room, a room in your house dedicated solely to having your breakfast in. So you're telling me that room remains unused for like 90% of the day? That's crazy. A breakfast room. Wow. That is... Yes, Paul says yes. Fair play, Paul. Fair play to you. Life must be pretty good if you can exclusively designate a room in your house solely for breakfast time. Is that why you listen to this podcast then? Surely just this is, maybe we should call it the TGT room in your house. That must be what it needs to be called. Could be says, how soon can we do that draw? I mean, even if I do another competition, which I'm not, because I was given that shirt to give away, and I haven't been given another shirt to give away yet, so I'm not doing one at the moment. When can it be done? You might not even win. Someone else from Ghana might win again, and I'll be sending 2 shirts to Ghana. There's no guarantees that we're going to level it out. It's capitalism. Shepherd says, what are your thoughts on Maccabi Tel Aviv's fans not being allowed? Are we making me go down that route? Are we, Shepherd? I'll give you my honest thought. My honest thought is I think it's a mistake. That's my honest thought. I'm not like the most educated on the topic, but I think it's a mistake. I think it sets a precedent, and it means that if you're gonna ban fans, then you got to kind of ban all fans, because if you don't, I mean, it's I can understand the pushback. I understand the pushback on that decision. I don't think, I'm not sure I think and I was talking to a friend of mine about this. Very, it's kind of an innocent conversation with no, what's the word, agenda, motives. And I'm going to end the show on this point because I know that this is always a topic that sparks kind of a debate, and I get it. So just take everything I'm saying about this topic. It's not coming from an agenda or anywhere. I've not got kind of like my, I don't even know the right way to put it. I'm already digging myself a hole talking about it. It's such a volatile topic that any opinion that you have on it, someone's going to get upset. So just first of all, please don't get upset with my opinion is. It's just an opinion based upon information that I have. And if you disagree with it, I'm really open to discussing anything. So always feel free to reach out to me and say, Tom, I didn't agree with what you said, and here's why. And just let me know why you disagree with it. I'm always up. My DMs are open everywhere. So please do reach out. But in my opinion, I think what should have happened is that they should have absolutely allowed fans of a club into the stadium. But considering the environment of what's going on, there should have been resources allocated to ensure that it can be catered for. If that makes sense, the relevant stewarding, the policing in the area, all of that stuff, the relevant resources should have been given enough resources to enable fans, because I don't like painting anybody, a whole group, with one brush. I just think that's wrong, and making a decision for one group, I don't agree with that. Now, I'm not fully educated into the previous actions of a fan base. I'm not, I'm not educated on if there's a real history with problems from Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. I'm not. So I don't know that. And maybe that's extra context that I'm unaware of, that you can even let me know of. But even then, I'm sure that there are fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv that were not involved in any disruptive behavior in the past who are being punished indirectly for something else. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I've kind of put that across as best I can. But I don't think that one decision should be made for an entire group ever, because I think it just sets a precedent that I can't ever really get on board with, So it's just, the world's mad right now, and I'm really glad that in recent news, particularly on this topic, we're perhaps moving into a slightly, maybe even significantly better space, with the news that there is obviously an agreement and a ceasefire and all of this. It's joyful to hear that, because it's been awful. And friends of mine of different backgrounds have been suffering for their own reasons around these things. And it's so sad. It's so sad to see so many people from all different backgrounds suffering. And you just want it to stop. You just want to play football. And I know that you can never ever take politics out of football. And I hate that phrase. I hate when say keep politics out of football. You can't. You can't take politics out of football. It's just not possible to take politics out of football. Politics and football are intrinsically linked to one another. So it's so difficult to be able to remove one from the other. I just think that the relevant resources have to be made so that we can just enjoy football, and that we can keep it as much about football as we can. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a real shame that football is affected by this, but I think Abdul Hakim sums it up really well. Football should be a uniting thing, not a divisive thing. And as I said, if you disagree with my point of view, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I don't mean any harm to anybody who views things differently to me. And I'm always open to hearing different points of view about it. I'm not going to read them out publicly on the show because I think it could start, it can cause real distress for people because it's been a really distressing time for loads of people of loads of backgrounds. And I'm always reluctant to say one background first and then another background second, because people can even misconstrue that as me having kind of a lean towards one over the other when I don't. I'm equally as sad when someone of any background loses their life or is affected by something horrific. I'm equally as sad always, because it's just horrible. It's just horrible. But yeah, I hope it gets sorted out. I hope that fans who just want to go and watch football can go and watch football. I really hope that can happen. But thanks for asking the question. I hope I've answered it as best I can in my view. I'm just never a fan of kind of painting an entire group with one opinion. I think that's always a really dangerous thing to do. So that's just kind of where I sit. But yeah, thank you so much as always for tuning in. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you've listened, to everything else that we talked about as well. And I know the end of the show took a more serious turn, but it is a topic that's very relevant for a lot of people, and obviously I think is worth addressing with the seriousness that it deserves. And if indeed you want to reach out to me, you can at any of those platforms and ask my opinion about certain things or pick my brains on it. So feel free. I'll try and give you my honest opinion to as much of the education I am. I remember being asked a long time ago about the topic, and I remember saying to you that I am not educated on it, and I've done a lot more reading since then, but I'm still not ever going to be as well educated on it as so many more people are. So there's that as well. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Hopefully Arsenal can get the result that we all want. And we look still very much likely for the title come the end of the day, because things change so very quickly in this sport. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.